Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These powerful words from Carl Jung invite us to look within ourselves and question how much we truly understand about our own minds. Have you ever felt stuck, as though you're repeating the same patterns and not entirely sure why? Maybe you've always believed you were simply shy or outgoing, or maybe you've labeled yourself a purely logical thinker or an emotional type. But what if there's a deeper design guiding these tendencies? Could Jung's idea of psychological types offer a roadmap that helps us navigate who we really are? Today, we're diving into the fascinating journey of discovering how these types can reveal not only our outer masks, but also a more profound truth about our internal landscape. By the end of this exploration, you might question everything you thought you knew about personality and realize there's a hidden path to growth just waiting to be illuminated. Before we set off, I want to welcome you to this channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Your support keeps this conversation alive, bringing deeper insights and practical wisdom straight to you. Now let's get back to the question. Does psychological typing reveal your real personality? Often people hear personality test and think of social media quizzes or broad categories that claim to sum them up in neat little boxes. Maybe you've tried such quizzes for fun, or maybe you've even used them to make sense of your career or relationships. You might have felt validated, or perhaps you were left unconvinced. Jung's approach to psychological types runs far deeper than quick stereotypes. It's about understanding the inherent energies within us, like extraversion, introversion, sensing, intuition, thinking, and feeling, and how these forces combine to form a unique psychological blueprint. The challenge is that many of us assume these labels define us fully or remain static throughout our lives. But Jung saw them as dynamic processes, unfolding and evolving over time. Instead of relegating us to mere categories, these types can serve as stepping stones to greater self-awareness. They prompt us to ask, are my instincts steering me toward or away from my true potential? Or do I adapt naturally to the external world, or do I find my power in reflection and inward focus? As we embark on this journey, keep in mind that Jung's map is not the territory itself. It's an invitation to discover new layers of your psyche. If you're ready, let's begin by tracing the roots of what Jung actually meant by types, why they matter, and how they can guide us toward a more authentic, fulfilling life. Jung's psychological types revolve around the interplay between extraversion and introversion, as well as four main functions: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. This idea is like a compass with multiple directions, each representing a distinct way of perceiving or judging the world. Imagine setting out on a grand adventure. Before you go, you'd want to know whether you thrive off the buzz of the people around you or prefer solitude to recharge. This is where extraversion and introversion come into play. Then for reading the map itself, do you rely heavily on concrete data, like checking landmarks, distances, and signs? That's the sensing function. Or do you glean insights from patterns and possibilities, picking up on what isn't visible on the surface? That's intuition. When you decide how to get to your destination, are you more inclined to evaluate logically, thinking, or weigh values and personal connections? Feeling. These cardinal points shape not only our journeys, but also how we handle setbacks, successes, relationships, and personal growth. One common scenario might unfold at work. Picture a meeting where each person is tackling a project differently. The sensing type meticulously writes down every detail, following the project guidelines to a T. The intuitive type seems to leap ahead, brainstorming wild possibilities that may or may not relate to the outlined plan. The thinking individual focuses on efficiency and cost analysis, while the feeling counterpart worries about how the outcome will affect everyone on the team. If you've ever been exasperated by a colleague's style or felt misunderstood for your own approach, you're experiencing the friction of diverse psychological types in action. However, once recognized, these differences can become strengths. A creative dreamer can spark new horizons, while a precise, detail-oriented partner ensures everything runs smoothly. When there's a balance, the collective result can be remarkable. But how do we begin this personal journey of recognizing our own type without falling into simplistic labels? Here's the first aha moment. Jung believed that these orientations aren't fixed constraints. They are evolving potentials. You might lean heavily on intuition now, but over time, life experiences or conscious effort could develop your sensing side. Similarly, an introverted person might develop extroverted strategies in certain settings. This is where the notion of individuation, Jung's idea of growing into our fullest selves, comes into play. We are more than one letter or one function. We are complex beings striving to become whole. So, rather than pigeonholing yourself, you can see your type as a default preference, not a permanent prison. It's like a flexible lens for examining why you react the way you do and how you might expand your horizons. Consider a second real-world example. An introverted, intuitive thinker named Sarah who works in a fast-paced marketing agency. She often struggles because she needs time to reflect on concepts and hates being rushed into decisions. Her boss, on the other hand, is an extroverted sensing type who loves immediate feedback and real-time problem-solving. Tension arises because each is speaking a different psychological language. Once they identify their own styles and see how the other is wired, they can adapt. Sarah learns to communicate her innovative ideas more spontaneously, while her boss understands that giving Sarah a moment to process can lead to more refined insights. This shift in perspective not only diffuses conflict, but also creates a synergy where both can thrive. In this journey, it can help to think of discovering your type as shining a flashlight into different corners of your mind. Maybe you'll find a quiet library in one corner, your reflective side, and a bustling marketplace in another, your outgoing side. Every corner has its treasures, but also its hidden challenges. If you've never set foot in the intuitive corner because you always felt more grounded in the concrete, exploring it might reveal hidden creativity you didn't realize you had. This is one of Jung's core teachings. The unconscious holds potentials we haven't yet activated. By learning about our psychological type, we bring these potentials closer to the surface, like finding secret passages in a mansion you thought you already knew. Yet for many, the moment they discover these type-based insights is both enlightening and unsettling. Perhaps you realize you're not living in alignment with your core preference. Maybe you're an extrovert forced into solitary research, leaving you drained and unmotivated. Or you're an introvert, and every day you're bombarded with social interactions that make you dream of escaping to a deserted island. Awareness, however, is the first step. This is the second aha moment. Recognizing a mismatch between your true preferences and your life circumstances can be a game changer. It prompts meaningful adjustments, whether that means advocating for more alone time or balancing group tasks with individual workflows. And it's not just about jobs. In relationships, if you understand that your partner approaches conflict from a feeling perspective, while you approach it from a thinking perspective, you'll meet in the middle more graciously. Of course, it's one thing to see how it works in theory, and quite another to apply it day to day. You might wonder, where do I start? Or is there a test? Many people reference tools like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, inspired by Jung's work. While such tools can be helpful, Jung's original intent was more introspective and fluid. One practical application is to observe your energy flow. After a social gathering, do you feel charged or depleted? After an intense conversation, do you want to keep going or reflect quietly? Another application is journaling. Ask yourself, when I solve problems, do I rely mostly on sensory details, or do I spontaneously generate intangible possibilities? A third useful approach is to track how you make important decisions. Do you weigh pros and cons from a purely objective standpoint, or do you prioritize harmony and values? By systematically noticing these patterns, you grow more attuned to your psychological landscape. Let's consider a young entrepreneur, David, who always believed he was a full-blown extrovert because he excelled at networking events. However, after reading about Jung's types, he began to notice something odd. Once the excitement wore off, he felt exhausted, sometimes even anxious. A little self-reflection revealed that David might actually be an introvert who, out of necessity, learned extroverted behaviors to succeed in business. The result was a mismatch. By making time for solitude and reading, David discovered he could recharge and bring even more enthusiasm to the next event, rather than running on empty. This example highlights the power of adjusting the external demands with our internal preferences. It's a form of self-care deeply rooted in psychological insight rather than fleeting self-help tips. Where does all this lead us? Jung's map, after all, is not just about comfort or knowing ourselves better, though those are important. It's also about becoming conscious of our blind spots. Here we meet the idea of the shadow, one of Jung's most potent concepts. The shadow refers to the parts of ourselves we don't want to see or admit, traits we've disowned because they don't fit our self-image. For instance, a feelings-oriented person might repress their capacity for logical thinking, dismissing it as cold or unfeeling. Conversely, a thinking-oriented person might label emotions as weaknesses, ignoring a vital dimension of human connection. Ironically, our unacknowledged qualities can cause us to project our frustrations onto others, blaming them for what we fail to recognize in ourselves. Embracing our type also means confronting the aspects that lie dormant, but are nonetheless part of who we are. This confrontation can be transformative, recognizing that you have both an inward, reflective life and an outward, expressive life, or that you can both evaluate logically and value emotional insight, frees you from a strictly one-sided identity. Here's the third aha moment. We're not as locked into a single style as we might think. If we grow aware of our weaker functions, maybe intuition if we tend to rely on sensing, or feeling if we depend on thinking, we can integrate those weaker functions gradually. It's like adding new colors to an artist's palette. Your paintings become richer, deeper, and more balanced. This is the essence of Jung's journey toward wholeness, recognizing every latent function within you and bringing it into the light. To visualize this, imagine crossing a bridge that spans a wide river. One side of the river is your natural preference, safe territory, familiar landscape. The other side is the unfamiliar territory, representing the function you've neglected. Every step across this bridge requires courage, curiosity, and the willingness to see life from a different vantage point. Some days the wind might blow fiercely, and you'll be tempted to run back to safety. But if you persist, the reward is a more complete view of who you are and how you can relate to others. This metaphor captures the essence of the journey pattern. We're evolving, bridging gaps within ourselves, and inching closer to a unity of mind and spirit. So how do you begin bridging these gaps in a practical, daily sense? One technique is what I like to call micro-experiments. If you identify as a strong sensor, try exploring intuitive leaps once in a while. Join a brainstorming session without a strict plan, or allow yourself to daydream intentionally. If you're an intuitive type, practice grounding yourself in the present by focusing on details. A daily walk where you note the color of the sky, the shape of leaves, the feel of the breeze on your skin. Over time, these small exercises develop neural pathways that enrich how you process the world. Similarly, if you're more of a thinker, challenge yourself to show vulnerability in a trusted relationship, explaining how you feel rather than what you think. And if you're a feeler, give yourself room to dissect a problem systematically, focusing on data rather than interpersonal harmony. These shifts may feel awkward at first, but they're stepping stones toward greater flexibility and authenticity. It's important to note that this journey is not just about individual fulfillment. In families, understanding each other's psychological types can foster deeper acceptance. If a parent recognizes they're highly extroverted, but their child needs quiet, introspective moments, the tension around, "Why won't you talk to me?" can lessen, replaced by an appreciation for that child's reflective nature. Among friends, acknowledging the difference between sensing and intuition can help avoid conflicts over how to spend time together. Maybe you'll balance real-world activities with imaginative pursuits. In romantic partnerships, the interplay of thinking and feeling can spark conflict if unrecognized, or create perfect synergy if embraced. In each relationship, knowledge of these types can break cycles of misunderstanding and build empathy, because we see that each of us navigates reality in a distinctive, yet ultimately valid way. If you're still wondering where you fit, remember, you're more than a single label. No single quiz or category defines you fully. The value of Jung's framework lies in its invitation to self-reflect, to see how you naturally orient and how you might evolve. Ask yourself, what function or preference have I been dismissing? And how might life look if I start integrating that function into my routine? These are powerful reflection points that can spark new insights. They can illuminate patterns of behavior, like why you keep ending up in the same job frustration or relational conflict, and pave the way for conscious change. Along this journey, there will be moments of doubt. You might resist a certain label or get attached to one that feels comforting. That's normal. Psychological typing is not about strapping on a name tag for the rest of your life. Rather, it's about discovering the deeper currents of energy that shape your attitudes and behaviors. And when the unexpected occurs, like a job layoff, a breakup, or a sudden move, your type might shift in subtle ways as you adapt. Each shift is an opportunity to see how these patterns play out in a new context, how you've grown, and where you still need to develop. This continual evolution is a testament to the richness of Jung's theory. It accommodates life's complexities instead of boxing you in. If you've made it this far, let's pause and reflect. Have you felt a small spark of recognition? Maybe you've realized you're not as extroverted or introverted as you once believed. Or maybe you see how another function has quietly supported you behind the scenes. If you feel that spark, consider it the beginning of a transformation. This is the heart of Jung's message. Understanding our psychological types is not a final destination, but a catalyst for growth. Once we grasp our natural leanings, we can journey toward balance, bridging the gaps in our knowledge of ourselves. The real personality emerges when we integrate all sides of who we are, rather than clinging to just one part. As we near the end of this exploration, let's gather a few guiding insights from everything we've covered. First, psychological typing is a dynamic system, offering you a map of how you perceive and judge the world. Second, your preferences, whether extraversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, or thinking versus feeling, are starting points, not strict boundaries. Third, real-world examples, from office conflicts to personal relationships, demonstrate how these preferences shape our experiences. Fourth, practical applications such as journaling, micro-experiments, and mindful communication can help you integrate unfamiliar functions and grow beyond your comfort zone. Finally, the journey to wholeness, as Jung envisioned, involves making room for what lies in your shadow, the undiscovered or suppressed parts of yourself, and daring to expand your definition of me. If you're curious about applying these ideas, start small. Try writing down 3 instances each day where you felt energized or drained. Notice the commonalities. Were you engaged in lively conversation or quietly reading a book? Did you rely on concrete information or hunches? This simple practice can reveal patterns about whether you lean toward extraversion or introversion, sensing or intuition. Another step might be discussing these insights with someone you trust. Compare notes. Sometimes what we see in ourselves differs from how we appear to others. That dialogue can be eye-opening. And as you continue, watch for the ripple effects in your relationships, your sense of purpose, and your personal well-being. If this journey resonates with you, consider liking this video and sharing it with a friend who might be intrigued by Jung's psychological types. We're a growing community dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of the mind and heart, so your support truly helps. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. We have many more deep dives into Jungian psychology and other transformative topics planned. Here's one last reflection to take with you. What new potential emerges when you embrace not just what you already are, but what you could become? That question can be a guiding star. Whether you're 20 and exploring career paths, 40 and reconsidering your life's direction, or 60 and reflecting on the legacy you'll leave, Jung's insight is that at any point, you can awaken undiscovered aspects of yourself. Psychological typing is one piece in the grand mosaic of understanding who we are. Let it serve you as a tool, not a rule. Let it guide you as a friend, not a master. Thank you for being here. In the comments, share the most surprising insight you've had about your type or an aspect of your personality you're starting to see in a whole new light. By participating, you might inspire someone else's journey. Remember, the real personality emerges when we become conscious of all our layers. Keep exploring, keep reflecting, and stay curious about the incredible world inside and around you. Your journey doesn't end here. In fact, it may have only just begun.